I'm in Hopkinsville, Kentucky, which is ranked the most dangerous city in the state of Kentucky. And Kentucky is ranked the 40th most dangerous state in America. So it's the most dangerous city in a state that isn't very dangerous at all. And just to give you an idea of what this city is like, we're like in the strip mall section of the city. Just outside of this is all farmland, and we're headed towards the downtown. We're about a mile out of the downtown right now, so we'll get to see the downtown. So it goes from literally farmland to strip mall city to the downtown, and this city is dangerous for the state, but by American standards, in any other state, it probably wouldn't even be considered dangerous at all. So I don't expect us to see too much in the lines of things that make it look dangerous, but we're gonna do a drive through it anyway, just to see what it looks like. The population here is around 30,000, and it's declining. It's 59% white, 29% black, 4% Hispanic, and 1% Asian. So it's fairly diverse. The average age is 35, with 22% of the adults being seniors. So it's not it's kind of right in the middle. It's not a super young population, and it's not a super old population. It's kind of nearing the older side, but not a real old population that lives here. There's a 46% home ownership rate, which is 27% lower than the national average. For a city like this, I'm actually surprised it's not higher, just because of the makeup of the city. Like I said, it's farmland. You know, within the city, it's farmland, then it's all that strip malls, and then you get into where the houses like this and the like actual city part. I would think it would be higher, and maybe that's why the city has higher crime compared to the rest of the state, is just there's not enough people here that own their own homes. And the median home value, I don't know what year these numbers came from, but the median home value is listed at $117,000, which is 36% lower than the national average. And the median rent is listed at $730 a month, which is 23% lower than the national average. Ooh, that house needs to be tore down. That one, oh my, yeah. Well, maybe we will actually see something in through here. These houses look like they need, a lot of them, almost all of them looked like they needed to be tore down. We might actually see something. Stop here on red, way back. Maybe we'll actually see something through here. I didn't expect to, but I didn't expect to see houses that look like that either, that really need to be tore down. So I don't know if you can really buy a house here for $117,000. I drive through these cities, and I always think that, wow, if I could buy a house for $117,000, I'd move to this city, because where I live, there's no way you're buying a house for $117,000. And the average income here is around $37,000, which is kind of, you know, it sounds low, but it's kind of just normal for cities like this. There's a 20% poverty rate, so 1 in every 5 people that live here live below the poverty line. And that sounds like a high number, and it's kind of right at that, where it's kind of skirting high, and it's not really low, but it's very, very typical to have the city have a 20% poverty rate, which is kind of sad, but that's just the way it is. They have a 37% marriage rate, which surprisingly for cities like this is kind of good. You know, most of the adults are, and you would think it would be higher though, because the average age is slightly higher. Like, you'd think that number would be a little higher, but it's just not. So now we're into the downtown area, which is kind of cute. I like these, you know, these downtowns that are like old school looking like this. That Coca-Cola building or business has been closed down for a while, it looks like. Oh, there's actually some graffiti on that brick wall. I did not expect to see any graffiti here. I honestly did not expect to see any graffiti. And there's even kind of a lot of garbage. If you look over in the leaves on the side, there's garbage mixed in with it. 62% of the people that live here were either born here in Hopkinsville or born in the state of Kentucky. That theater looks like that's probably closed. The building next to it, that has something in it. This one on the right that's boarded up. 3% of the people that live here are foreign born and 2% are listed as non-citizens, which I always give that stat, the non-citizen stat. And we know there's no way it's accurate because there's just no way I mean, the people have to admit to being here illegally for it to be anywhere near accurate, so it's probably not accurate. But I give it anyway because they supply it, and it kind of gives you a ballpark. Sometimes the cities, that number of non-citizens is really high. So crime here is 145% higher than the Kentucky average. Can I turn on this road? Yeah. 145% higher than the Kentucky average. But as far as violent crime goes, it's right at the national average. It's 145% worse than the state, but it's right at the national average as far as the country goes. And its property crime is 90% higher than the national average, which puts it right in that regular city bad. As far as their murders go and the murder rates in 2020 and pre-2020, so prior to and including the summer of Floyd, the murder rates were between 3 and 12. So that puts them in that regular city bad range. And that came on just 1 to 3 homicides. So it's a smaller population, so 1 to 3 homicides will give it a decent murder rate. In 2021, which was the year that most cities spiked way up, they had 9 homicides, so 3 times the homicides in 2021 than they had previously. And that gave them a murder rate of 29.2. And then in 2022, yeah, a lot of this stuff, it looks like they're doing work on it, though. A lot of this stuff is boarded up, but they're doing work on it. Setting up Christmas wreaths or something. And then in 2022, they followed that up with 5 homicides and giving them a murder rate of 16.4. So if you don't know a lot about murder rates, they go on and all these assault rates and theft rates and all that we're going to get to, they go on a per 100,000 person basis so that you can compare cities apples to apples and not like compare a city to Chicago and say, well, Chicago gets 800 homicides a year and this city only gets 5. How can you say they're the same? On a per capita basis, you can. So the murder rates here, the 29.2 in 2021 and the 16.4 in 2022, those numbers are, and I'm only saying those numbers because no newer numbers have been released yet. That's why I only got up to 2022. The 2023 stuff, it hasn't been released by the FBI, or it was released by the FBI, but it's not, you can't access a lot of it. So the murder rate in Chicago consistently almost every year is 22. So their murder rate, 16.4 one year and 29.2 the other year, they're falling right in that same range kind of with Chicago. Although they're bringing it down, so that's a good thing. Their assault rates are in the hundreds, which is very good, very low and very good. Their theft rates are in the 2,000 to 3,000 range, which is just slightly better than just what I would call regular city bad. So not bad. Your odds of becoming a victim of a crime here is 1 in 25, which might sound like a lot, but it's kind of just typical of any American city these days. And year over year, they're showing a decrease of 1% in crime. So the city's getting it together. every city basically, if it would slightly spike in 2020, and then 2021 was a huge spike year for literally most of America. The lockdowns had lifted. I think he's sitting there. Thank you. The lockdowns had lifted, and you know, people just went crazy, and they weren't like arresting anybody anymore. It was like they just let all this stuff happen. So crime in 2021 excuse me, I had a sneeze. Crime in 2021 like went out of control everywhere. Like literally everywhere, it went way up. But the city, I mean, this is the worst city in Kentucky, like I said. And Kentucky is of the safer states. So it's nowhere near anything that you would call bad, but the crime here is far worse than what most cities in Kentucky are. So the schools here, 38% of the kids graduate proficient at reading and math. In the state of Kentucky, 48% graduate proficient at reading and math, and in America, 48% of the kids graduate proficient at reading and math. So Kentucky on average is right with the national average. Hopkinsville is well below the national average and the Kentucky average for schooling, which is probably part of the reason their crime is higher, is they're not, I mean, in America, only less than half of the kids graduate at a 12th grade level for reading and math. In America. So Kentucky's no different than America, because America doesn't teach the kids anything anymore. America has become really stupid, and nobody learns anything when they go to school. Look, well, we're back on the same road we went the other way on. America doesn't teach anybody anything. I mean, I could tell you what they teach them in school, but I'm not going to get into all that. But the kids aren't learning anything. So this one's just over 1 in 3 can read and do math at a 12th grade level. Just over 1 in 3. Which is, I'd like to say is bad, but it's really typical of any city with high crime or higher crime. And this city technically doesn't have any other state. I wouldn't be doing a drive-through it, because it wouldn't warrant a drive-through. The only reason I'm driving through this is it's the worst one in this state. It's still crime-wise, it's completely safe. You know, the theft rate is a little high, but the violent crime is actually very reasonable. It's at a very reasonable level for the size of the city. It's all stuff that you'd expect to, you know, happen in any size city in America anyway. If we were in any other country, this would be high crime, but in America, we've come to accept that crime is just going to happen, and you just have to live with it. And that's kind of what this city is there's a level you'd have to just accept, but it's not high compared to any other American city. 80% of the people that live here completed the 8th grade, and 78% graduated high school. And 18% of the people that live here have a bachelor's degree or better. So it's not the most educated city, but it's right there. It's right there in with like all the normal American levels. But it probably wasn't the best if you were looking to see like bad areas and stuff like that. This probably wasn't the most interesting drive for you, because I mean, there's been some litter, but not that bad. There were those houses we passed at the beginning that probably looked like they needed to be torn down. But, you know, there's not homeless people everywhere. There's not graffiti, although I did see graffiti. There's not a lot of graffiti everywhere. It's the most dangerous city in a state that doesn't really have any dangerous cities. So we're going to let this play out just a little bit longer, although I think I'm pulling out of town already at this point. Yeah, it looks like I'm pulling out of town. All right, well, I'm going to call this here, and I hope you learned something from this. Kentucky, I was surprised looking into it. Kentucky is extremely safe state. And I'm here after the peak of the, where the leaves are changing, but just outside of town a little bit, there was still a fair amount of leaves still on the trees, and it was really pretty. I think Kentucky gets a bad rap, but if you wanted to move somewhere that was on the safe side, because it's definitely on the safer side as far as any state on a statewide level, if you wanted to move that's cheaper, and you either didn't have kids or your kids were already out of school, or you were willing to put in the work to look for a place that actually had good schools, because the schools here in general, like on a 30,000 foot view, are not all that good. They're not teaching your kids, but you're gonna find good schools that are mixed in with the ones that aren't. Oh, that one, the roof looks like the shingles are all tore off, the house on the right there. That one's leaking, I'm sure. But this might be, I mean, Kentucky kind of gets a bad rap, but if you want a place that you could afford to buy a house, and you want, a place that basically anywhere you went, you would feel really safe. If those are your two criteria, this would be a good state to move to. And Hopkinsville, like I said, this is the most dangerous one. And by all accounts for American cities, it's not really dangerous at all. Like, I literally, in any other state, would not even consider driving through this city. Would not even consider it. It's so safe, it would not pop up on my radar, not even close. It would be so far down on the list of in any other state, aside from maybe the 10 states that are below it on the, or that are the 10 states that are safer. But yeah, it's the most dangerous, and you could live here 100% and feel safe. And if those housing numbers I gave, the 117,000 for the average price for a home, if that's anywhere near still accurate, that's a very reasonable, it showed whatever the average income, I think, was 37,000 or something like that. Anywhere near that, if you could afford to buy a house here, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I'd want to live here. It's a little too much farmland for me. Like, we're already out of the city just a little bit, and all you see is farmland again. But that's how the city was pulling into it too, is it was just farmland. And then you hit the strip mall city part, the strip malls where everything's lined to the street, and you got all your McDonald's and all those things, and all the regular strip mall places. And then the downtown was kind of cute, and it was actually a halfway decent sized downtown. So now we're out in the woods, now we're out in the farmland, and I'm gonna let this video, I'm gonna call it here, and I hope you learned something from it. If you did, please hit that like button if you liked it, and if you're not already subscribed, consider subscribing. I do a drive through cities like this, post every Sunday, so there's a different city every week on Sundays that I go through, and you learn a lot about different parts of the country and different cities, and especially if you're someone that's looking to move and you're just looking for the bigger cities that are safer and the ones that you should avoid and stuff like that. Watching videos like this, actually, I learn a lot from doing them, so I hope you guys learn a lot from watching them. And like I said, now we're out in the middle of the farmland, and we're still in city limits, but we're out in the middle of the farmland. So thanks for watching.